Hi, this is John Doe with the DNB Academy, and in this video I'm gonna show you how you improve your breaks by adding transients made in Serum. So, to give us some sort of context, I decided to build this drop consisting of this drum break from the DNB Academy Creative Suite. As you can hear, this is a pretty cool and decent loop, but actually imagine that you're building yourself a track and using this drum loop, this break, as your sort of template, but you feel like the snare and the kick, especially, they are missing some punch. There are a few techniques that you can do to improve those, but those can be a bit too overwhelming and maybe a bit unnecessary. One of them being like compressing the break. Uh, but at the end, what you want is just to make the kick and the snare stand out. But as you can hear again, this break, even though it's sort of rich in transients, but your direction in your music is a bit different than this. You want something a bit harder, something that clicks and peaks a bit on the spectrum, you know. So yeah, and by adding this bass line, I managed to create a bit more context to the break, so that way when we make our changes, we're gonna feel exactly what I'm talking about. So let's hear it like. This is a preset from Jest's creative bundle as well on DNB Academy. It's really cool pack. So I can show you. This is the fizzy barrel bass. It's a really cool patch. I just added a bit of distortion and EQ and a bit of OTT at the end of the chain. So okay, now let's start focusing on our break and try to achieve what I mentioned. So for that, I'm going to create two different MIDI tracks. So I'm pressing Ctrl-Shift-T on Windows to add these two tracks, and now I'm just gonna choose our buddy Serum, and we're gonna use it in both these instances. Right, on the first one, what we want to do is create that transient for our kick drum. So let's zoom in a bit. Now that we got our grid on place, we see we got our kick here. So we're pretty much gonna create a MIDI clip. We will focus on the tuning a bit later on, because that's really important if you want to like use this break. You know, we're not trying to replace the kick with a different sound. We're just adding something to it. So now let's open up Serum. All right, awesome. Now what we're gonna do is just go to the analog wave tables and choose basic shapes because we want a sine wave. Now we're gonna put our random phase all the way down so our sound is consistent every time it's triggered. And our initial phase, we're gonna put it at 90 degrees because this is the sweet spot for the sine wave to achieve more clickiness and more presence on those 3K, 5K area. So okay, now let's take this envelope, this LFO, and choose it, this envelope mode. And now we're gonna create one like really steep and short shape there. We're gonna assign it to our course. We're gonna put this one in polar mode, and then we're gonna, let me just arm the track so I can play. Yeah, you hear that click. Obviously we need to also work around the volume, but that's the click we want. So now we're gonna create another envelope. In this one, we're gonna pretty much do the same, something really short, and assign this to the volume of oscillator A. This way, we're only left with this, and I'm gonna show you on our master bus how does it sound and how does it look when we play it. See, this is what we call the snap area. Between the 2K and 3K hertz, this is usually where you'll find that snappiness on your drums. And this patch can be used for the kick and for the snare as well. because they are pretty much too similar to each other, but there are slight differences between them that I'm going to show you. So let's just increase the master here. And now let's copy our kick to follow our drums pattern, which should be something like a classic two-step drum and bass pattern. And now let's hear if we notice some differences already. See without it. Yeah, we just need to boost this up a little bit more. Especially here on the pitch side of things, because obviously if we crank this too much, it'll sound really bad. Let's turn on the volume a bit here as well. It doesn't matter if it clips, we're gonna fix it later with just some limiting, but we can already hear the difference. Like, you see, this is the more boomier kick. It's cool, it's okay, but look at the difference now. And we are not even fading in the kick drum, because that's something that you could do. Just split the sample here, and now we're gonna put this in automation mode, and we're gonna just do a slight fading on the sample. As you can hear now, the click is even more present, but we don't need that, because that's the point of this technique, is not to fool around with the original sample itself. We're just adding a bit of a clickiness on top of the original transient. So now let's sort of do the same process to the snare. Let's take advantage of these midis we got here, and let's just place them on the snare spot and copy. Now let's head to our Serum. And the process is going to be pretty much the same. We're going to choose our basic shapes, sine wave, random phase all the way down, phase at 90 degrees, one envelope to control the volume. Just put it like this. On the snare, it's going to be a bit different. We want something a bit longer. And then second envelope for our pitch, polar mode. Now let's see what we're left with. As you can hear, this is something a bit bigger and longer, and that's what we want. Now let's tweak this a little bit. Let's do a sort of a different shape for our snare, because that's what we want. We want this boominess, this richer transient that will also give us some harmonics that will be important to get the snare banging on top of the mix. Now let's tweak here our pitch here, so we can achieve this click just by increasing the way the envelope affects our chorus here. And now let's hear it. Let's hit the break first. Now let's hear with our transient. Oh yeah, big difference. Now what we can do is just tweak it and tune it. Go to the semitones here and make it a bit higher. And now here we can just make it a bit shorter and have it like more of a rim shotty snare. And then it's obviously up to you. You can make this way longer, lower. It just depends on your taste. I would do something like this on a break like this. You can even go further and add a bit of reverb to your transient. Just a tiny bit, so we don't lose any of its most important properties. So okay, now let's just mute our transients and hear the break. Now let's turn them on both. And let's hear how they sound with the actual bass. This is without any of those transients. Let's turn them on now. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This way the drums just came so much higher up on the mix. Look. Especially, even the kick, like, trust me, when we start add more elements to the track, because right now it's just bass and some drums, they don't even have sidechain, but when those other elements start to come in, trust me, this will help you so much. And even this technique can be applied to, let's say you have you're mastering a track, that you have your pre-master fully done, but sometimes after you just start to pushing up the limiter, you start to lose a bit of those transients. Just add some of these layers on top of your main transients, and sometimes these tiny details, those small transient clicks, are more than enough to make your drum stand out. So I really hope you digged this tutorial, and I see you on the next one. Peace.